As imperfect human beings, we're all capable of committing errors in our cognitive reasoning. These errors are typically called biases, and one of the most common biases that we fall prey to is called the confirmation bias. This is the idea that we have pre-existing attitudes or beliefs, and we process information in a way that is consistent with those beliefs or attitudes. Let's take a closer look at the confirmation bias in more detail. Now, you've probably heard you never get a second chance to make a first impression, and this is definitely true. Those initial hunches that we get about people or topics guide our perception about them. Now, these initial interactions that we have are called primacy effects. Now, when you think about what this means, primacy means the first interaction that you have, and the effects have long-lasting implications for how you are perceived or how you perceive the person or the topic that you've just been introduced to. I'll take, for example, the first time you ever ate a lemon. That bitter taste led you to have certain expectations about the next time you encountered the same fruit. You now go into the experience of eating a lemon with that anticipation of the bitter taste. The same's true of people. If you meet someone who is particularly abrupt or rude the first time you meet them, you expect that abruptness or rudeness in subsequent meetings. Similarly, if someone is happy and jolly the first time you meet them, you expect that same demeanour time and time again. So these primacy effects prime us into having particular expectations about people, about topics, and about situations right from the get-go. Now, once we form these initial expectations, we then use them to make sense of the social world. If somebody presents information that supports our initial hunches, then we ask a simple question: can I believe it? What we then do is we go out and we find a single piece of information that supports our view, and we bring that out whenever we are challenged about our opinion. When people ask us for proof about a person's character, or about the moral virtue of a particular political position that we hold, we can pull out this piece of information and say, aha, here is our evidence. Something similar happens when we're given information that doesn't correspond to our pre-existing worldview. And again, we just ask a simple question: must I believe it? This works on the same principle as the first question that we ask. If we don't want to believe something, we ask, do we have to believe it? We go out and we seek information that contradicts the information that we've been given. Can we find that one piece of information that refutes the article that we've been presented with? If we can, well, hey, we've got some evidence to argue against the information that we've been given. All this is biased and is motivated in order to bolster our pre-existing attitudes and our pre-existing beliefs about the world and about other people. Now just think back to the social intuitionist model of decision-making that we've covered already. That model is based all around the idea of social, moral, and political intuition. These automatic hunches, these automatic gut feelings that we have about particular issues or about particular groups. It's these feelings and these hunches that we have that guide our information processing and guide how we interpret particular information that we're confronted with within the social world. We make our mind up using these hunches. Our pre-existing beliefs guide the way that we either believe or disbelieve information that we're being presented with. When we start to reason through a judgment, we ask the questions, either can I believe it, if it's something that corresponds to your worldview, or must I believe it if it contradicts your worldview? In essence, the confirmation bias argues that we're just animals trying to confirm our pre-existing beliefs, rather than being in pursuit of true knowledge. So how can we overcome the confirmation bias? The most obvious answer to this question is to expose ourselves to a range of different opinions. Now, the widespread adoption of social media makes this particularly difficult in modern times. It's really easy to unfriend someone who shares opinions that are different to yours, or to unfollow someone who posts unsavoury tweets. However, what this does is it creates an online echo chamber where we're only confronted with messages that correspond to our own view of the world. When we do this, we think that this is how the world is and how it should be. We don't open ourselves up to being refuted or argued against. So some top tips for overcoming the confirmation bias will be to be open to listening to other worldviews. Be open to listening to other opinions. Don't try to advocate your particular side. what that will do is to make other people ask the question, must they believe it? By adopting a non-confrontational approach to political discussion, what you can hopefully do is to foster a collaborative discussion, rather than one that is based around who is right and who is wrong. By doing this, you open up people to a range of different opinions, including yourself, and this is really important when trying to overcome some of these cognitive biases that we all have. So there we have it. The confirmation bias appears to dominate how we interpret information in the social world. When we're presented with information that corresponds to our worldview, we're motivated to believe it. It bolsters our sense of self. When we're given information that goes against our worldview, again, we're motivated to disbelieve it. We find that one piece of information that refutes the argument that we're being confronted by. We need to break this cycle and open ourselves up to disagreement, to argument, and to hopefully non-confrontational debate. It's only by doing this that we can break ourselves free from the shackles of the confirmation bias and move towards an objective view of what is right and what is wrong.